Aloha and welcome to Figments, the Power of Imagination, Season 1, Episode 6. I love that Hollywood talk. I love it so much that today I've asked a couple of great friends whom I've known for over 10 years to join me. You know, before I forget, I have to thank Think Tech Hawaii for letting me do this. And in full disclosure, admit that I, in fact, lost money to Ross Rowley on the golf course the last 2 weeks, counter to my smack talk. Sad, but anyway, I'm not sad because I've got two great friends, as I said, who I've known for over 10 years. And in our lives, we meet extraordinary people from cabbies to kings, sometimes both at the same time. We just have to pay attention and realize what a blessing we're getting when we meet people. And so now I'm going to ask to join us Maria and Andre Jacques Maton from LA, California, two Hollywood producers, screenwriters. Aloha. Hey, Andre,
Hello.
how are you? Maria, good to see you. We'll talk about seeing you apart, which I've never done before because you are truly one later. But it's great to see you. Thanks for doing this. We did meet over 10 years ago. Do you remember that? I do.
Absolutely.
We do. I remember specifically. It was a mutual friend who put us together.
Exactly.
Marie and I were working on a project that revolved around the military, and we were looking for consultants. And I was playing soccer with a friend of mine who works at Northrop, and he's the one, Mike, who put us together 10 years ago.
Yeah, and when Mike approached me, he didn't know me. I worked in a different part of Northrop Grumman. So I got this hush hush email, then a phone call from a colleague who said, you need to call Mike. And the secrecy around idea protection, if you will, in the entertainment industry is more impressive sometimes than in the military. So we eventually connected on my personal phone. That was important to Mike and to you, and found that you had a story that I could help with. But more than that, we enjoyed talking and working together. And since then, you have been very successful. And I think I can demonstrate that with a picture that I have here. Very successful. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We've been very fortunate. Yes.
Have been very lucky.
I think you've been very lucky, but worked really hard, right? We'll talk about the hard work that is what you do. So that we were originally intending to work together on a project, and over 10 years later, this is the hard work. I love these pictures because they show you at work, and I know you got your arms back, Andre, in that picture, but I also know you work your butts off to get something to the screen. And 10 years later, we're not there. And as you said, it's a work in progress. We haven't given up. How would you describe to viewers who don't know, and I know we have viewers because I'll see the lights or the likes, and besides, I know my wife is downstairs watching, so there's at least one. But how would you describe the grind of being a writer, producer in this industry and getting a figment, an idea from your gray matter to the screen? And how would you share that with people?
I'm going to say what I feel that I've learned over many years making a living as a writer, and that is that nobody told me when I was 16 years old and I decided to go into writing that I was going to forever for the rest of my homework. But that is essentially what the job is. You, as a writer, you don't necessarily, you may have a schedule that goes from 9 to 5 or from 10 to 7 or 14 hours a day, depending on what you are in the production cycle of a TV series. Of it is that your mind is working 24 hours a day. You're constantly thinking up ideas. Sometimes you're concentrating on trying to fix something that's not working in a story. You're out taking a run and suddenly, an idea for an episode or the fix for a problem you're having will just bubble up into your subconscious. And you don't really have the luxury of being able to say, well, I work for 4 hours, I'm gonna, put that aside. You have to go and write it down that moment so you don't lose it. So to me, that's what the grind of the job really is. It's not like it's a terrible burden, because if you're a writer and you've had any success at it, you have to love the work, because something that I would like to comment on later on when you ask about, what exactly it is we do. But the journey itself as a writer is something you really have to love, or just the sheer enormity of doing it will kill you.
That makes perfect sense. It sounds consuming, but in a sort of a delicious way. So, Andre, I'm going to ask
Absolutely.
you how how do you clear your head and make room for new ideas, kind of step away from whatever project you're on, what you're trying to do? How do you refresh your gray matter and get creative again, if you will?
I've been playing soccer since college. I got a weekly game on Sunday, and it's really my life saving
Good.
activity in a sense. I get together with a bunch of guys and I run, and it's the only time where I'm not thinking about anything but chasing after that soccer ball. And that helps a lot. I think also, we live by the beach. We live in a beautiful place like you do.
Lovely. Yep.
That's incredibly helpful as well to
Mhm.
recharge. Um, and I love my wife, and that helps me a lot as well. The fact that
Yeah.
we do this together um, is really incredible, and such a gift.
Can I? Yeah, you two are amazing exemplar as a couple and friends and all that. But would you mind sharing how you met? I assume it was in the industry, and you may have told me 10 years ago. But guess what? I'm my age and I don't remember.
We met at Paramount Pictures. I At the time I was in France. My father had passed away. He had a small textile company, which I didn't want to be involved with, but I was able to set up an internship with Paramount Pictures, and that involved meeting with Maria's boss, and that's how we first met.
I was actually a secretary. Goes back to the hard work that's involved. And
Yep. Yep.
on the theme of Figments, I had come out to Los Angeles when I finished college, where I had gotten a graduate degree in film production, but really coming from a small Massachusetts town, had absolutely no connections.
Yeah.
And the entertainment business, like many businesses, is 90% what you can do. And well, it's more like 50% what you can do and 50% who you know. So I came out here and I could type 90 words a minute, and I immediately got a job because of
Nice.
that in the number one agency in Hollywood, without knowing that that's where I had landed. And so I had been working as a secretary and had gotten from the agency to this studio job where I was working for one of the development executives who chose the movies that the studio was going to produce. And so that's where I met Andre. He came in for an interview and we hit it. Well, we didn't really hit it off
Yeah.
at first, but eventually we did. And, we both had interest in being in the industry. We were in production at that point, but both wanted to be writers. Had not really intended on writing together. We were writing
Hmm.
separately, but at a certain point, we realized that we creatively really, really jived well and complemented each other. And so we just wrote a script together it's called writing on spec, where you write a project and then you try to sell it. So we did that together. And that project, although it has yet to come to fruition production wise, did get us a lot of jobs as a writing
Yeah.
sample.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So that's how that's our kind of our love story and our work story.
Well, I've talked through this project that we've been working on with you guys, and
Mhm.
one thing that impresses me every time we talk is that you both talk and exchange ideas in it's natural and without friction. I'm sure there's friction at some point in your lives, but
Oh, yes.
it's and that makes it fun and easy. I mean, talking to you too about the ideas you have and your tolerance for the amateurs' inputs that are probably late to need and everything else. It's just a lot of fun. Now, the next question is one that I really don't know what the answer is, and that what's the difference between writing and producing? Because writing isn't just putting words in the actor's mouth. It's not just a script. As I thought about it, getting ready for this, it's all of the scene setting that the script contains and the writing contains, and the describing the backstories, etc. So, what's the difference between being a writer and being a producer? And are you now both? Is that a black and white line, or what's the dealio?
Well, being a producer in many instances is it's just a title. It's a glorified title. It means that you've
Hmm.
spent a lot of time, specifically for writers, um, that you've reached a certain level. Um, but then also executive producer basically means that you take that script, you're responsible for all those scripts, and you take that script and you shift into production, which means that you're in charge of
Ah,
hiring cast, you're in charge of hiring directors, you're in charge of hiring department heads, and you see that through until the essentially the film is in the can and you hand it over to the network. So you're in charge of pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's
which
sort of
would
like a,
go ahead.
no, I was just going to say with television, it's really a job that you kind of wear two hats. You wear the hat of being the creative person who generated the idea and wrote the story and all the dialogue and every line of stage direction, which then translates into an image on the screen. And then you
Hmm.
wear the hat of the person on the set who is there from call to wrap every day, making sure that the integrity of the story and what was intended in the creative process ends
Yeah.
up on the screen. So that's sort of the way I think of it.
The integrity of story, that's a great phrase, maybe common in your business, but I think about it as we've talked through this 10-year project, very conscious of the integrity of the story and keeping it right, and it's beyond continuity. So you've been very successful, and we have some photographic evidence of that right now. How did that feel? And let me ask you, which moment you felt it the most, and how did it feel? Did you feel when you learned you'd won the Emmys, or when you're standing there with the statuette? When was it, and how did it feel?
It feels a little surreal to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
You really can't believe it. It's such hard work that when you're handed that statue, you're like going, is this a mistake?
Mm.
And it's
Like
it's
every
uh,
promotion I ever had.
yeah,
Uh,
it's incredible. It's just such an incredible gift, and the fact that we were able to do it for 3 years in a row was even more extraordinary. I mean, it was such a great team, such a great family. So many people were involved in making this happen. It's just miraculous. That's all I can say. It really is.
It's really like Audrey was saying, it really is a surreal, well, for me, it was a surreal moment because uh, I never went into this business thinking, oh, I want to win an Emmy or I want to win an Academy Award or I want to be famous. I loved storytelling from a young age. I still love
mm,
it to this day. I feel like everyone I meet is a potential character or inspiration for a character that,
mhm.
because every human being has a unique and interesting and compelling story that's worth being told. And what we do as writers is we meet, we listen, we absorb. We're really like vampires, and then we take that information and we synthesize it into a tale that we want to tell and that we feel has an important, I don't want to say message, because there certainly is a place for writing, writing with the intention to deliver a message. It's more like a theme, like how do
Mhm.
I want someone to feel at the end of the day when they come out or they turn off their TV or they walk out of the movie theater? Do I want them to be angry? Do I want them to go home and hug the person they love? Do I want them to go join the military? What is the thing the emotion that I'm trying to elicit? And the idea that like when you're kid sitting in your room reading a book or watching a movie or watching a TV series, that you could be the person who gets to set that in motion just seemed like such a huge leap that I never even thought about, oh, I'm going to go to Hollywood someday and be famous.
Yeah.
I just thought, wouldn't it be amazing if I could be somebody who starts that process? And so to be, to be nominated for an Emmy, it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. And to be able to go to the awards show that you watch on TV was like a dream come true. But at the end of the day, like Andre said, a TV show and certainly a movie, they're the sum total of so many individuals that are talented and dedicated, that just because you're the one standing up there with the Emmy doesn't mean that you're the only one who deserves it. So we really felt super grateful to be in that position. And
It's such a
Cool.
gift when the material you're working for, the project, touches so many people. I mean, to this
Exactly.
day, we still talk about Mad Men. People come up to us and want to talk about Don Draper, and it's extraordinary. It really is. When we think of when we first started back in 2003,
Mad Men?
yeah, 2007, right? And
Wow.
there were just like six of us in a room,
Mhm.
and it's just incredible. And with this cable channel that was just starting out, AMC, it really was extraordinary.
And it happens. Let me just say this. Every week I talk about what would Fig do. And so my what would Fig do this week, I had one in mind, but it's different. And now I'm going to change, or it was a different what would Fig do. Now I'm going to say, go back and listen to the last 2 minutes and what Maria said, speaking for both of them, about how you approach success and what you're trying to achieve. And you get some hardware or a promotion or some manifestation of the success, look for the bigger success, and that's touching and maybe even changing people's lives. So those were great words. I'm going to take a quick break, let you guys catch your breath while I talk about what's upcoming on Figments, the Power of the Imagination. On April 19th, I'm going to have two great friends who are handed death sentences and refused to accept them. Cancer survivors Kim Rowley and Bruce Fink are our friends. And like many, they got some really bad news, and their figment was survival and recovery. And they have. You'll like that a lot. On May 3rd, I'm going to do something a little different, and it'll be a monologue by me. There's an issue that I think we should all be talking about, and that's racism and racial bias. I'll talk specifically to my experience in the military, which is largely positive, but the events of the last year or so have made me reconsider what I think, not just about the future, but about the past and how unbiased was I really. So I hope you'll join me for that. And then I've got a couple of other good shows coming up. Honey, I bought a race car. What? I bought a race car, and I think you'll enjoy that too. So let's get back to Andre and Maria. And thanks for sharing. You talked about drawing characters from people you meet and being vampires, and I'm okay with that. I can't sleep that much anyway. But the uh, your life sometimes presents you a storyline, and I'm watching Truth in Advertising. I didn't see the ending yet. An episode of a show, and we'll leave it at that. That is based on your life. And because I know the rest of the story, mostly we talked about it, I think in California, maybe we had that conversation about part of your life, and it made my heart squeeze, not necessarily hurt, but it was so real. The point I want to make is that when I see what you do on screen, and I know it's your work, or even if I don't, I recognize it. My father was a great amateur photographer, even though he was in a small town in Wisconsin. He had pictures exhibited um, on every continent except Antarctica. Bob Leaf, the late Bob Leaf. And if you saw his picture, you'd know it was his picture. When I see your work, I feel like I know it's your work. and it's the intricacy and the beauty of everything you put into it. Do you talk yourselves into that beautiful woven fabric? Maybe that's a analogy to the textile company, Andre, that your father ran. But you seem to weave things together. Is that a collaborative process between the two of you that makes that happen? How does that work?
I mean, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, I think that Maria and I have special chemistry. We're just incredibly fortunate to come across each other's paths, and we share this love for storytelling. And we're once in a while, if we're fortunate, we're able to create a certain magic, which we constantly try to recreate. Um,
Doesn't happen all the time, I don't
yes.
think.
I
You
know.
ones that are-
I got it. I got it.
There's a pile of really bad scripts sitting right behind me here, actually. So, yeah, it's interesting. What weaving a tapestry is really what it feels like.
Yeah. Cool.
And you can take writing courses and you can learn the actual craft of it, the technological craft of act breaks and act outs and how many jokes go in a scene and all of those things that sort of make the trade of screenwriting. But I think that the part of it that you're talking about, like that essence of what makes a piece of writing or a piece of and then also the piece the television that it ends up being after being directed and actors bringing things to life. What makes that really resonate with people, I think, is that sort of special sauce that you can't teach that. Either you have it
No.
or you don't. I mean,
Yeah, you
I've
have it.
taught a lot of, yeah, I mean, Andre and I do some teaching, and I've had a lot of writing students, and fortunately, you can teach someone to be proficient, but you can't teach that instinct, that creative
But
instinct.
yeah, I would offer that it requires a, not that I'm telling you, because you actually are the Emmy winners here, but I'd offer that it does take both. And I sort of made a reverse transition. I've written a lot for publication, very different from the writing you've done, and maybe won one prize that wasn't an Emmy. But I was proficient at storytelling, but not at writing. And in the Air Force, I learned how to write, and it takes both. You got to have the
Absolutely.
technical skill and all that. So sadly, we're running out of time. So that my last question for you is: you are great people. I'm so grateful to know you. Most of your characters are not so great people. Not all of them, and most of them have a thread of redemption woven in your tapestry. But why is that? Why do you write about not so or create not so great people? The
Well,
dark side.
drama comes from conflict, right?
Yeah.
If you have a lot
Yeah.
of nice people hanging around with each other, being nice to each other, you're not
Yeah.
going to have much torque to your story.
Ah,
But
And
also, go ahead.
no, it's also about redemption. You got to start someplace
mhm.
that's kind of dark and not so much fun. And you put your characters through the ringer, and hopefully some of them will come out the other side. That's part of the journey, right?
Mhm.
And uh,
It's
so
also wish fulfillment. I mean, look,
yeah,
you said we're
Ah,
nice people. We're nice people. We're nice to each other. We try to be kind. We try to do good things for the world. But by writing characters that are complex and a little bit bad,
Mhm.
it allows you to live vicariously. Like
Yeah,
I can't behave the way
ah,
the characters
and
in Mad Men or in the Romanovs behaved, but I can certainly imagine what it would be like to
that's
behave
right.
that way and how it would
yeah,
feel. And I think
So
that's part of the wish fulfillment of writing and of watching entertainment.
your alter ego is on screen doing all the things that are in the back of your mind,
Right.
or not. Right. Well, great. I thank you so much for joining me, and look forward to talking again about this project that may take 20 years to get to the screen, but it's been a lot of fun. Folks
Not
notice that I'm not tipping our hats here at all on this. Andre and Maria, God bless you. And ending with the theme of redemption is great on the day after Easter. So thanks so much. We'll be in touch. And I'm really glad you joined us. And that brings us to another end of, or the end of another episode of Figments. In other words, it's a wrap and it's in the can and all of that great Hollywood stuff. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please give me your feedback at info@phase-1.com or on the Think Tech Hawaii website. Think Tech Hawaii is a 5013C nonprofit. We require your donations and grants to keep us going. And if you look at all the other content, it's a great service to the community. So I'll see you in a couple of weeks when we talk about imagining recovery. Aloha.